And we've got, whoops.
They'll blanket you in Wi-Fi and profit off the radiation. Congregation collecting the people for that Satan. I keeps it blazing, cause I can read between the lines. I ain't blind, we unwind what they're really saying. Genetically modify what you're tasting. Don't need that college promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Program to crave the basics. Keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid. You're in debt for being born. Messengers are mourn, just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed, disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Happy Halloween! Tonight on Rogue Ways, it is my pleasure to welcome a veteran of the paranormal and beyond, our expert on the ghostly and demonic on this spooky night of the thinning veils and liminal spaces between dimensions, the psychic, the medium, the author, and the paranormal specialist bringing the wilderness to us as a motorcycle enthusiast, John Russell. John, welcome to Rogue Ways, and how are you doing tonight?
Lindsay, thank you so much. I'm just delighted to be here. This is really great. Happy Halloween to you. Happy Halloween to everybody. And we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. We're going to talk about a lot of things, and we're going to have a lot of fun.
Yes, I'm very excited. I just had a very long weekend, and this is going to be so much fun for me to help me unwind and have a good Halloween. And I just want to mention to all the Rogue Warriors out there listening, there are so many of you, and I love you, and I am so grateful for you. You make the dream real, and so I want to invite you to TikTok. If you're a TikToker, I'm on TikTok now and making little snippet videos, so you can come find me there. We do have a new meditation. It's a monthly meditation subscription, so twice a week I'm going to guide us in meditation, and that starts this Thursday. So if you are into it, you can go grab that from the site, rogueways.org. Join us for the entire month. And it is at a super special discount this month since it's the first month I'm offering that. And so I want to invite all of you to join me. And finally, the Brighter You course is brand new. That also starts this week. And so it's full this round. But in January, we'll be starting another 6-week course for those of you who want to uplift and recharge and brighten and really deepen your spiritual connection and skills. So come check that out. It's also on the site at rogueways.org, along with a ton of other stuff that you can grab for yourself to make your life and your brightness just shinier and bigger and better than ever, and support the show at the same time. So thank you all for all you do. Like, share, subscribe, and all of those good things, and let's get to it. John, I always ask a pointless question of the episode, and I'm going to ask you, what is your favorite Halloween candy?
My favorite Halloween candy? Oh my goodness. That's like asking which is my favorite child. I've had a monster sweet tooth ever since I was a kid, and I still do. And I don't think I can name a favorite, because it's like all candy, I see it, I devour it, I love it all. It's just all fantastic to me. So no favorite. I really do. I really love a wide variety of candy, but I do have a little weakness for See's candies out of California, See's chocolates.
Yeah.
And we used to get those when I was a kid. I had an aunt that lived in California, and she would send us a box of See's chocolates every year for Christmas. And that was like the big deal of the year, right? And I've loved them since I was a kid, and I keep getting See's chocolates. And you can go and construct your own special box of See's chocolates with just the things you want in it. And so I splurge on that and do that sometimes. So I kind of have a weakness for that, I guess.
That sounds delicious. I love See's chocolates as a West Coaster. I know exactly what you're talking about. And if I have to pick a favorite Halloween candy, I have to say it's Reese's peanut butter pumpkins. But honestly, that's just my favorite all year round. So I don't know if it counts as Halloween. Yeah.
I hear you.
Well, let's dive into it. And John, I wanted to ask you, what childhood was like, because sometimes people who are really into, especially the paranormal and ghosts and things like that, had a childhood where that was sort of part of their growing up. Did you experience these things when you were really young? Was it part of your sort of family, lore and culture, or was this something that you found later in life?
No, it was. My family had a lineage with some psychic abilities and some paranormal experiences.
Oh, wow.
Nothing to the degree that I've experienced, and no psychic gifts to the degree that I have, but always an interest there. So it was always supported, which was very fortunate for me, because, most kids, it's like you come in and you go, you're 6 years old, and you say, Grandpa just came and sat on my bed and said hi. No, honey, but Grandpa's dead. Grandpa's in heaven. Grandpa didn't do that. Or you say, hey, I was outside playing, and this person appeared. This little kid came and appeared and played with me. No, no, no. There's no imaginary friends. Stop lying. Get over that. So for most people, it's discouraged. But for me, fortunately, growing up, I had the belief in, because of their experiences, and the encouragement of at least my mom, a little less my dad, because he was kind of like a closet believer in the paranormal. It scared him to death. And he was a guy, he was a rancher, he was a bar owner. He kept a hammer and a blackjack behind the bar and used them. So he was this like really tough guy, right? But the paranormal scared him because it was nothing he could get his hands on. He couldn't fight it. He couldn't grab it. He couldn't defend himself against it. It manifested at will, and there was nothing he could do about it. So that kind of freaked him out. But for me, everything started when I was 5 years old. My parents had left a nightlight on in the hallway, so if I had to get up and go to the bathroom or whatever, I could see. So there was this nightlight in the hallway, and my bedroom door was open. So I was sound asleep, absolutely, totally sound asleep. And in the middle of the night, I popped up just absolutely, completely wide awake, totally alert, fully alert. And I thought, well, maybe a sound happened or something. So I listened for a noise, no noise. I thought, well, this is really strange. So I raised up on my elbows in bed, just kind of looked around my room, and I could see a little bit in my room because of the windows and the light outside, and then the night light in the hallway. And I looked around, didn't see anything. And as I looked out my open bedroom door into the hallway, there's this old black man peering around the corner of the doorway down the hall. And we're obviously white, didn't have anyone black living with us. I don't even think we had any black friends at the time. So to a 5-year-old kid, my first impression, but black or white didn't matter really, but my first impression is somebody's broken in. There's an intruder in the house. And I screamed bloody murder. And as I did, the old black man walks around the doorway down the hall toward my bedroom and locking eyes with me. And I can describe him to you. He wasn't translucent. He wasn't a vision. He wasn't a mist. He was every bit as solid as you or I. He had this close cropped white hair, a white mustache. He had a red flannel shirt, khaki pants, black shoes, black belt, and literally every bit as solid as you or I.
Wow.
So that's why I was convinced somebody was in the home.
Yeah.
And as he got closer to me, I screamed again, and then he began to vanish, and he became translucent, transparent, began to vanish, and then he was gone. By the time my parents got there, he had gone, he had vanished. So my parents were trying to tell me, oh, you watched something scary on TV, you had a nightmare, it's no big deal. And I was like, no, somebody was in this house. And I was so scared and so convincing that my father actually went around, checked all the doors and windows, looked under the beds, looked in the closets, excuse me, and nobody there. Obviously, the house was locked up tight and secure. And they tried to tell me, oh, it's just a child's nightmare. You just had a bad dream. And I knew better. I knew I had seen someone physical that then had subsequently vanished.
Yeah.
And so almost impossible to go back to sleep. Is he going to come back? Is he going to ask me questions? Is he going to want me to do something weird? Why did he come in the first place? Who is he? And so real hard to get back to sleep. And for the next several days, maybe several weeks, kind of looking over my shoulder periodically, see is anything gaining on me. And all of a sudden, I had this epiphany, and it was like, oh, this guy came to open up this portal to the other side for me.
Wow.
And in so doing, Now, I've had way, way, way over 1,000 physical paranormal manifestations in my life,
Wow.
experiences in my life. And these are not things that I dreamed or meditated or hallucinated or whatever. These are things that actually occur on the physical realm. A lot of times we audio tape them, videotape them, other people witness them with me. So physical happenings,
Wow.
and way over 1,000 of these. And so it dawned on me as a young child, he came to open that up.
Hmm.
So I would begin to learn about the other side and what it's like and what it's going to teach me, and therefore what I can teach other people. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it. It's pretty cool. Scared me to death at the time, but now this is pretty neat. And then the outgrowth of that beyond the paranormal experiences to learn that connection, to have that connection with the other side, was that a little bit later, my psychic gift began to develop from that same awakening experience. And the way that I learned that, I was close to about 6 then, I guess. And I was out in the backyard playing, and this car pulled in the driveway that I didn't recognize. So I ran inside and I told my parents, I said, somebody pulled in the driveway and I don't know who it is. And they said, okay, we'll come out and look. So they came out and said, oh, that's friends of ours. Okay. So I'm goofing around the yard playing, and they're standing outside talking, and they haven't gone inside yet. So I kind of get over close to them and kind of eavesdropping a little bit. And I'm standing there looking at them, and I said, and I just, little idiot, just blurted in the conversation. And I said, you guys just went on vacation. And I said, you drove that car that's in the driveway. And you don't have kids with you today, but you have 2 kids, and you took those kids with you on vacation in that car. And the hotel you stayed at was painted this color, and it had this many stories. And there were these trees in front, spaced like this, and they looked like this. And in the back, the pool area was painted this color and looked like this. Well, the husband kind of was like this at my parents, and his wife, it was the most beautiful thing I'll never forget. His wife was literally bug-eyed and her jaw was agape, and she was looking at me like I had cobras growing out of my ears or something. And she looked at my parents and she goes, how the hell could he possibly know that? And my parents kind of looked at each other confused, and she goes, how the hell could he possibly know that? And my mother said, oh, kids and their imaginations and things they'll say. And she goes, no, 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 no. She said, how the hell could he possibly know that? That's what we were coming to tell you today, was this vacation we had taken. We drove our car, that car in the driveway. We took our 2 kids who are not with us today. We stayed at this hotel that looked exactly like John described. How the hell could he possibly know that? And her eyes are getting wider and wider, and she's looking at me more and more like I've got cobras coming out of my ears. And my mother said something like, and my mom and dad were like, go play, John. I was like, okay, nice to meet you folks. And off I went, and they never came to the house again.
Oh, wow.
I scared the life out of them. So, but that's when I discovered I had the psychic gift that I could see into people's lives. I could tell where they've been, what they've been up to. And then I began to learn that I could read their emotions, their thoughts, their past, their present. I could accurately predict the future for them. And that's when all that started. And I thought, okay, let's see what we can do with this thing. Let's see where this thing goes.
Wow. What
Yeah,
a really cool childhood, because a lot of people,
it
like you
was.
said, might have experiences like that, especially before they're 7 years old, and then have that sort of suppressed out of them and pushed out of them by
Yeah,
society, or people like that woman who's like, this is freaking me out. Let's turn it
right.
off. Let's shut it
Don't
down.
talk about this. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And people are really scared about this a lot. And so to have a family where this was encouraged and invited, that you got to explore it more, that must have
yeah.
just been so amazing. And, I wonder if you feel like, would you still be as skilled or have as many experiences or be as sensitive if that didn't happen? Do you think, or do you think it would still happen because you just have that gift?
I don't think that it would. I think that, or if it would have, it would have at least been delayed. Because when you get, I've seen what ridicule and disbelief does to people when they talk about religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs, the paranormal, psychic things, UFOs, so on and so forth. And that can really, really just close you down. That can really shut you down.
Hmm.
And a lot of people can't stand that type of criticism. They can't stand that type of ridicule, and so they do shut the gift down. They do just turn it off and turn away from it. And I think that with what I was given, it may have come back to me over time, but I think I was very fortunate in that I didn't have to experience it that way, that I had that encouragement and that acknowledgement from the get-go, and that enabled me to connect with it much earlier and learn much faster, and then keep it going at a much earlier age than otherwise I would have been able to.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too what you said about your father, who was like, "This is the one thing that scares me really bad because I can't choke it, I can't punch it, I can't do it.
Right,
What do you
right.
do?" And it's interesting to think if everybody had to sort of grapple with that realization that this stuff really is real, and that there isn't physical force you can use against it, and that you have to maybe develop an internal presence and understanding, like,
Exactly.
what would that do to our entire society, which is very materialist and very,
Yeah, yeah.
let's punch it and kick it instead.
Exactly, exactly. And that's what people have to come to grips with. And I can't tell you, Lindsay, how many clients I have had call me, and using their words, the first rattle out of their mouth would be, "You're my last hope before I check myself into the loony bin,"
Oh, yeah.
because they had had a legitimate physical paranormal manifestation in their lives that they could not deny. And all their life they had been taught there's no such thing. This doesn't occur. This doesn't happen. And they were like, well, yeah, here it is. It did. And so they're telling me, okay, am I nuts, or is this real? And what do I do about this? And fortunately, I've been able to guide and help a lot of those people and explain to them, hey, this is real. It exists. It is there. And this is how you deal with it. So what you're saying is true. If we could get that message out to a greater, a wider part of society, what a difference that would make. And like, look what's happened with the UFO report. We got this jinky little dinky UFO report that really wasn't worth a heck of a lot.
Yeah.
9 pages, and a lot of it was introduction and annotations or whatever. But in there were these bombshells. The government said, these are real. They're physical objects. They are not explainable as being ours or any other government's. We're picking them up on multiple sensors. They're a possible threat to national security, and they're definitely a risk in our airspace for collisions and things. And it's like, holy cow, look what that has done. Look at the dialogue that has opened up. It's just mind-blowing. And so if we could do the same thing with the paranormal, it's really funny because people go, okay, well, yeah, I can believe in UFOs, but psychics, nah, psychics a bunch of BS. The paranormal's a bunch of BS. And it's really funny how we segregate things and isolate things. I'll believe in UFOs, but I can't believe in psychics. Or, well, I'll believe in psychics, but I don't believe in ghosts. Or, so we segregate all this, and it's all part and parcel. And the more people get into these experiences, like I myself had, you begin to see where the paranormal integrates with UFOs and with other things and with other reports of anomalies like Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever, and all these types of things. You begin to see that it's very integrated and not isolated. So when you're trying to do one thing and shut everything else out, you can't, because it's all related and it all works together. If you watch Skinwalker Ranch, they've got portals, they've got creatures, they've got UFOs, they've got orbs, they've got radiation that attacks certain people and doesn't others. They've got all these weird manifestations and things. So that is, to me, is a good representation of what's actually out there that we have to deal with and that we have to learn and work with.
Yeah. Well, and kind of unrelated, but on that same tangent, first of all, it's really refreshing to hear someone understand and say out loud that all those things are related in some way. But it also makes me understand why you could do something like, let's say, a rain dance, and it could rain, because there's all of these forces and beings and all kinds of skills that they have and things that they can control and affect as well.
Exactly
And so,
right. Exactly
if
right.
you're asking for their help, like, maybe they'll come help you. But
Yeah.
I have an interesting thought that, since this was so accepted in your family, and since you got to experience these things, did you have like a rebellious stage that was like, no, I'm not going to be psychic? Or, was there anything like that in your teenage years, or were you just kind of in it the whole time?
No, I didn't have that rebellion against the gift. I had the normal teenage rebellion against society, parents, and everything else. The establishment,
Yes.
that type of thing. But what really drove me, Lindsay, was about the age of 12, and probably a little earlier, but 12 was when I really got serious about it. I observed that in the realm of religion and the psychic realm, paranormal realm, spirituality, the whole gamut of things, there were phonies and frauds and fakes and people that would take advantage of people, people that lied, people that wanted their egos fed and all this. And I was like, oh, wow, what a revelation. That's a pretty big revelation to a young kid. And so about the age of 12, I said, okay, let's find out what is real and what isn't, what works and what doesn't. And then, let's pursue that. Let's follow the truth. Let's try and find the truth in all of this. And so that became my big mission in life. And in doing that, that led me into rebellion against a lot of the dogma, the tradition, the ritual, because I found out that it didn't work, that it was misunderstood, misused, abused, that there were people that were absolute, total, complete frauds and phonies that took advantage of other people sexually, spiritually, emotionally, financially. And that was in the mainstream church as well as the paranormal community and so on and so forth. And that disgusted me. It just really infuriated me. So I at a young age, I developed this hatred for the people that would do that and take advantage of people and harm people in whatever way and distort the truth and manipulate the truth. And so that became my passion, and I rebelled against that in the spiritual realm, um, rather than my gift, because my gift guided me through this, kept me safe through this, protected me. My guardian angels literally saved my life many, many times over the years through physical interventions.
Wow.
And all these many wonderful other experiences I've had. And I learned that I could rely on the input I was given from the other side and that it was reliable for other people. And so that was where I put my dedication and my devotion. And then whenever I saw something that was, manipulative or a lie or taking advantage of people, I went after that with a passion and still do. I wanted to call that out and, expose that and say, hey, don't drink the Kool-Aid,
Yes.
And here's why. And one of the things I think that became really disturbing for me, Lindsay, was that there were people that you could go to with black and white evidence of wrongdoing, and they would still support the person that was doing the wrongdoing. And it was like with Jim and Tammy Faye Baker, the televangelist, and they got caught up in the fraud. Jim got sent to prison, right? In prison, people were still sending him checks. People were still sending him money.
God.
And that's documented, And it's like, look, the guy has ripped you off. I mean, they had a heated and air-conditioned doghouse. They had, all of these phenomenally expensive things, living a lavish lifestyle while their supporters were sending in their Social Security checks and praying for a miracle and starving. And that's all documented. That happens with all of these phony evangelists and stuff. And so they get caught and it's exposed for what it is. And people are so gullible that they're still sending him donations while he's in prison. And that's one of the things that boggle my mind. It's like, my God, when you have black and white proof of something and you take it to someone and say, look, you're being robbed, you're being ripped off, you're being manipulated, you're being taken advantage of, don't do this. And they continue to do it. And that's the thing that puzzles me to this day. And there are still people that I have to contend with to this day that do that. And it's like I've had people, phony psychics. I've had people over the years call me and go, John, I'm educated. I have 2 or 3 degrees. I own my own business. I'm not ignorant, but I'm $50,000, $100,000, $150,000 into one of these phony psychics, you know,
Wow.
and I have to rescue them from that, tell them how to get away from that, why it happened, you know, what to do, and so on and so forth. And it's just, for me, it's just so immensely frustrating. And it's a battle that continues constantly, you know, it never ceases. And over all the years that I've done this, you know, I started reading professionally when I was 18. I'm 67 now. So I've been around the block a few times in this old gig. And to this day, I'm still having to deal with those very same things and rescue people from these phonies and frauds and get people to think of things um, in a logical way. You know, like the people that promise, oh, I went and visited with the aliens on this guy's property, and we're going in 2 months, and we're taking a film crew and the news, and we're going to get some celebrities, and the whole world's going to know they're here. They've agreed to this, and da 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 da. Bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, 2 months go by and it never happens, and it never will happen, and it's never going to happen because it's all a lie from the get-go.
Yeah.
But you can do that and become rich. And guys like me that are out there striving for the truth, we hope we'll get French fries with our hamburger, you know? And that's always something that's boggled my mind. It's like, it's just crazy. It's really weird.
Yeah. Well, people, it's funny because people do both. Some people don't want to believe no matter what you present them
Yeah.
with, like you said, and then other people want to believe so badly that they'll, you know,
They'll swallow anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then people will just take advantage of that and take advantage of that. But it's so excellent that people like you are here to help people through some of these things, because I know I've talked about on the show a lot too, and I've had the experience that, especially when I was younger, of paranormal things happening to me and being like, well, what? Like, I'm crazy. I'm going insane. Just
Right,
like you
right.
said. And going to the church and having the church be like, yeah, you're insane. And I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
you guys are the ones
Or
who...
you're possessed by demons, it's demonic, you're satanic, and yeah, all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and like...
So when you have these experiences, it's hard to get some factual help. And, you know, the thing that bothers me now, especially, is like everything's demonic. There's a demon with everything. And it's like
yoga
the
pants are demonic.
demonologist and and all this. And it's like, you know, and so all of the podcasts that I've been on lately, I've done like 70 podcasts this year.
Woo.
And all of a sudden, it's been this trend for people to ask about that. And it's like, you know, really? And I was like, no, because in all of my paranormal investigations that I've started since the age of 12, I haven't seen that. I haven't experienced that. And a lot of things that people think are evil or demonic or whatever, you investigate it, and there's mild mental illness, there's drug use, there's drug abuse, there's a wild imagination, there's misinterpretation of ordinary events, and all these types of things that occur. So it's, you know, you have to be so careful what you assign things to. And then, of course, when we talk about satanic, evil, demonic, whatever, our default position, if we're raised Christian, is to put on those glasses. And any paranormal experience we have, we default to that biblical definition. Well, it's got to be evil, it's got to be demonic, it's got to be satanic, it's got to be harmful, it's got to be scary, it's got to be this, whatever. That's the default position. So once we get past that and understand that that's not the right way to approach this, then we can begin to do some good. But it takes a lot to get through to people to understand that. And it's like, I had a client from India, and I've read for clients in over 40 countries. And I've had several clients from India, but this one client from India was like, John, I got to ask you something. You got to help me. And I was like, yeah. And he said, look, I was raised, you know, Hindu and all this, and I know it doesn't work. I said, well, no religion does. And he said, I know that. I know it doesn't work, but I'm bound by it. I'm like, I'm scared to do anything that goes different from that. Why? And I said, well, regardless of what religion you're brought up in, you're taught that the god or goddess or gods or goddesses have these set things that you have to do. And if you don't, you're going to be condemned, isolated, sent to hell, punished, whatever. And all these religions are that way. And so that's, you know, instilled in us from young children. And so we grow up and we're like, well, I don't really believe it, but what if, what if I piss God off, or I make this goddess mad, or this thing happens? And it's like, you have to learn to get past that. And that's what I explained to him. I said, look, you're terrified of this because that's how you were raised. And when you get past that and get to the point where you say, okay, um, I realize that this is, dogma, tradition, and ritual. And I've already acknowledged to myself that it doesn't work, and there's no reason to be afraid, because now I understand where that comes from. Then you can get some freedom. You can start walking on a true spiritual path. But that's what it takes for people. It's very difficult for people.
Yeah. No, it is very hard to break out of the molds that we were placed in, especially when we were young and fear was used and coercion was
Yeah.
used. And
Let me tell you this.
okay.
I had a client, again, going back to India. This was an Indian client that was born in India, raised in India, came to the US and became my client and told me one time that they owned an expensive apartment in Manhattan, and they had an Indian chef that was born in India, raised in India, came to the US, and had become a professional chef. Now, the person that was my client had enough money to live in a Manhattan apartment and to hire this chef to cook for them on a full-time basis.
That's good money.
And they would not be allowed to go into the kitchen when the chef was cooking in their own apartment, in their own kitchen, because even though they had this ton of money, the chef was born in a higher caste system in India than they were. So therefore, they were lower than the chef that they hired to cook for them. And I was like, does this strike you as a little bizarre? Does this strike you as a little weird?
Yeah.
Like, hello. So, we get stuck in all of these traditions and rituals and bizarre things that just don't work, that just don't have any grounding in reality, and we hang on to them. So it's difficult to get people free sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear about your guardian angel experiences, but it also makes me wonder, because if all of these beings that are really good and helpful exist, are there not some that are assholes?
Oh, I think so.
Okay.
Look, we can't say that evil doesn't exist. I mean, you read the news every day and you see how evil people are.
Especially governments and
Oh
politicians.
God, yes. Oh God, yes.
We were talking
So,
before the show about some things
yeah, we were talking
we're
before the
not going to
show about
mention,
that,
but
and we don't want to get banned,
yeah.
so we're not going to go into detail, but sufficient to say.
Right.
Yeah, and the it can't be all roses and light out there on the other side. Absolutely not. But at the same time, again, I've never had these. Uh, I'm in all my paranormal investigations, I have not run across anything that I would label demonic, frightful, harmful, scary, or anything else. I'm not saying that evil doesn't exist, but I don't think that it presents itself to us that prolifically and that obviously in the spiritual realm.
Mm.
Whatever is working there is working in a very subtle way, not an obvious way. And an example of that would be, excuse me, my wife and I had a friend who had some psychic abilities, and he was blind. And so and it was really funny because he lived in Manhattan. He could get around Manhattan better than most sighted people. And we were all out one day. We had all gone out. My wife and he and I had all gone out to eat, and we were coming back in, and we were at a crosswalk in Manhattan waiting for the light to change. And this entity blew past us, so close to us, and with such force, such speed, that our clothes literally all rippled. Okay. And there was no wind. And so we always had this thing, he and I, we would say, okay, what did you feel, or what did you sense, or what did you see? And then we would validate that or confirm that with each other to make sure that we weren't imagining something or whatever. And we were always in sync. So he I didn't say anything for a minute. He turned to me and he goes, "Did you feel that?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "What was that?" I said, "You go first." He said, "There was some kind of entity, some kind of spirit on the way somewhere to do something." And I said, "Yeah, exactly right. It had a mission." And he said, "I feel like it was malevolent." And I said, "I do too." And so, but it was, the feeling was so subtle that we could experience that and sense that and feel that. And the impression that we both got, that we kind of agreed on, was not necessarily that it was like, there's undeserving people out there and I'm going to go set their car on fire. It wasn't that. It was more like, I'm going to punish some sucker for something, you know? And if that, excuse me, if that's happening and you experience that or feel that or see that or whatever, you could interpret that as, oh my God, that's demonic or evil or satanic. Well, maybe not. Look, if Lindsay's my good friend, and if somebody hurts Lindsay, I'm going to hurt them really bad.
True,
Now,
yeah.
does that make me evil or demonic or satanic? No, it doesn't. So we have to extrapolate that to the other side and say that, look, we have mechanisms in place on the other side where entities, beings, spirits, and so on and so forth are acting of their own will and their own volition for various things and various purposes and so on and so forth. So we have to take that into account. There's so much that we don't know. And I get really pissed off at these demon experts, the demon, just what do they call themselves, that, they catalog all the demons' names and what they do and this and that and the other. Well, if you look at the definition of a demon, it would be an evil thing that's a liar and a manipulator. So how do you know that that thing's going to give you the right name or its purpose or whatever to begin with? If it's a liar and a manipulator, why is it going to tell you the truth? You ain't got no power over it. So all of these people that list all these demons and all their names and all their functions, it's like, will you give me some kind of friggin' break? It's like, come on. It's like, just, you're assuming that these things that are so incredibly powerful can be whooped down to a little thing and by somebody like you and like a little puppy and cataloged in a book and all this. Now you can call them out or control them or whatever. It's like, I don't buy it. Sorry.
It's really interesting. I've had the same thought. I'm like, what makes you trust anything that this thing is doing? And
Exactly.
in my experience, I'd love to hear your experience of this too. A lot of these types of beings can basically shapeshift or present in various ways,
Sure,
right?
sure.
So, like you said, like, how would you know that it actually looks like that? It's not just like, ooga booga, here's what I look
exactly
like.
right. Exactly right. We have to understand also that, and in my personal experience and in my paranormal investigations, we have to understand that there are beings of way different classifications than we imagine. We know, okay, our deceased friends and loved ones are on the other side, and we may believe we have guardian angels or there's angels. Well, there's also nature spirits. There's also fairies. There's also this and that and the other thing. And there's some beings, some entities that I think we don't even know what the heck they are or who they are or what their classifications are. Now, I'm not saying they're malevolent toward us, but they're not human. They're not human-minded. They don't have the same motivations, desires, things, whatever that we do. Will they occasionally work with us or help us or whatever? Yeah, I believe so. Do they occasionally smack us upside the head? Probably so when we deserve it, because we get really stupid in our interactions with the other side. And one example of that is these paranormal shows where they go in and start cursing the ghosts and challenging them and demanding them to show themselves and all this and all that. And then when they do, they scream and run like little girls. Yeah. It's like, dude, that's what you're there for.
That's what you asked for.
and you don't disrespect the other side, because in my experience, the other side does have tremendous power that it can demonstrate in our physical realm and to people. And you go into any investigation or any situation with the idea of respect and the idea of, hey, I'm here to see, with your permission, if you have a message for me or for someone else, or do you need to communicate through me or to me why you're here and why you're manifesting, what your story is, what you want to have done? And sometimes you get that, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have to acknowledge it might be some nature spirit out there with some intent that we can't discern. And it's like, hey, I'm here doing my thing, and if you're here and you can handle it, whatever. If you can't, get the heck out of here. So we don't have all these pat answers that we would like to have with the other side. It'd be great if we did, but we don't. It's a learning process. It's gone on for millennia and continues to go on. And it's like I tell people, it's like, look, people think EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, where you record spirit voices with a recorder. People think that goes back to Konstantin Rodiv. It doesn't. It goes way, way back before him. Way, way back before him. And I read this book on it with all this detailed stuff of the history of EVP. And so this goes back a long, 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 long way. Okay. Now, for all of these decades that we have done EVP, for all of our technology, for all of our advancement, for all of our science, what do we get in 2021 when we go to a place, or we're sitting in our office with, is anyone here? And we turn on the recorder. For all of this advancement, all of this science, all of these years we've done this, what do we get? George.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it's like, we've made no advancement. I mean, we're still getting the same thing we got so long ago. So science has so far to go to catch up with the paranormal. And it's like I tweeted to Brandon Fugel, who owns Skinwalker Ranch. And I tweeted Brandon and I told him on Twitter, I said, look, dude, science ain't going to handle this stuff. You're going to have to send in validated and verified and good psychics, mediums, shamans, or whatever, to figure out what's going on here. Because with science, you take a recorder, you take a REM pod, you take a camera, you take this, whatever. Okay, it activated, or we saw something, or we heard something. Okay, big deal. Who was it? What was it? Why are they there? What is their purpose? What is their intent? You're not going to get that on a recorder. You're not going to get that on a camera. You're not going to get that on a REM pod. You're going to get that with a medium, a psychic, a shaman, somebody that can go in there, communicate with these spirits. And one example of that on Skinwalker Ranch was when the rabbi came in there and said, oh, there's spirits here that have been here for a long time. Mm-hmm. This is kind of like their domain, and da-da-da-da-da. And he built this little protective thing, and he read this ritual, and the ritual is to open this portal. And when he opened the portal on camera, they caught this space that was just disappeared, that should have been there but wasn't. The temperature dropped like 20 degrees instantly. So they verified all this, but the point was the rabbi came and did this and opened this portal, and he was the one that interacted with that, understood that, and said why this is here. Here's how you do it. Here's how you interact with it, and they got the proof of that. So, in interacting with the paranormal, we have to realize that science is a long, 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 long way to go. And I was talking with a guy, I was on a podcast, and one of the hosts on the podcast was also a professional musician. And in addition to being a professional musician, he did all of his own software. So he could upload a song, turn it inside out, upside down, adjust anything, do everything anybody can do with a song with software. And he told me, he said, John, he said, being able to do that, he said, I've uploaded EVP. And he said, I have gone through every single thing that I know how to do as a professional musician with a software, and I cannot find the frequency that these voices are on. You can hear them, but you can't find the frequency. And he and I both agreed that when we discover that frequency that these voices speak on, what a breakthrough that's going to be, because then we're going to start having real-time two-way communication with, long sentences and so on and so forth with spirits on the other side. But we're so far away from that, and that's what we're still trying to get. So, and all of this, for all of our years that we've done, we're still kind of in the infancy of it. And one of the frustrating things, Lindsay, is that the other side seems to play peekaboo with us.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, here, I'll give you a little tantalizing bit here. I'll give you a revelation there. And then over here, I'm just going to leave you hanging for a while. It's like, what the heck? So we deal with that. And I think some of that may have to be literally a process of testing our faith. Is this guy going to hang in here? Is he going to keep studying? Is he going to keep going? Does he really care? What's his motivation? What's his purpose? And then I think the second part of that may be that there are firewalls in place, literal firewalls, because if anybody could just instantly get this power or ability or whatever, we're out in traffic, somebody cuts us off, and USOB, I hope you die. And the guy keels over of a heart attack right there. Boom. So I think the other side has these fail safes in place to keep us from gaining that power that easily, that readily, and exercising it, because they know what a lot of us idiots would do with it. So we have these checks and balances, these fail safes, if you will.
I really like that explanation and that point of view of it. It makes a lot of sense to me, exactly for the reasons you said. Most humans wouldn't really be ready. You know,
oh no, not at all. Not at all.
Many probably not even for the conversation we're having tonight, you know, let alone for that kind of power to be theirs.
Exactly. Exactly.
But it makes me happy to think about how little science and technology helps in this realm, because I constantly, you know, am reminded that human beings are the highest form of technology that we know of, and that our skills and abilities that are inborn, especially if we can hold on to them and develop them more and more and really sink into that, those are better than any computer is ever going to be, or any device we're ever going to make. Hopefully that continues. It seems true to me that our inborn skills are even better. And here's one more example of that, you know, is what you're talking about.
Well, I hope it will, but I do have worries about AI, artificial intelligence, and I'll tell you why.
You and me both.
Yeah, I've always maintained that if a spirit on the other side can manipulate matter here, if an invisible spirit can slam a door, move an object, whatever, this and the other, why couldn't that spirit also either manipulate and or possess a robotic device? And with that, there was, I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head. Oh, Morgan Spurlock, the guy that did the McDonald's series, and, you know, he ate at McDonald's for a year or whatever the heck it was.
Yeah.
Well, he did this deal with robots. And one of the most amazing things was they manufactured these little bitty teeny tiny robots that were meant to be autonomous. And one of the things they were supposed to do was, when they were low, they would go seek the power source, recharge themselves, and then go back out and do whatever they were doing. Now, without any programming, without any influence, without anything at all, some of the little robots begin to go and hog the power source and try and get more power than the other robots, and try and keep the other robots from the power source. Hello, ghost in the machine, hello. So if that happens and that's acknowledged, then you got to say, okay, if we develop some type of true AI, well, look at Boston Robotics. For people that don't know, if you go on YouTube, look for Boston Robotics on YouTube, and look at the robots that they've developed. I mean, these things are going up and down the stairs, going out and opening doors, doing backflips, picking up things, doing all kinds of stuff, walking out in the outdoors, and they're autonomous by now. Used to, they were kind of connected by cables and stuff. Now they're autonomous, walking out there on their own. Yeah. Now, at this stage of the game, what's to prevent some spirit on the other side from saying, this looks mighty entertaining? You know? Yeah. And it's like, the spirits that have stolen things from me, things have disappeared. Spirits have brought things to me, things have appeared at ports. What's to prevent some spirit from going, looky here, this robot, this could be real entertaining. Let's see what I can do here. So I think we have to acknowledge that as we move forward into AI. And I saw a podcast one time. There was an ordained minister, and he wrote a book on AI, and he was talking about the possibility of artificial intelligence becoming sentient, becoming self-aware. And he was asked the question, well, if that ever occurred and a robot, a cyborg or whatever, came to your church and sat in the service and listened to your service, came up and went, I want to be baptized, I want to be saved, what would you do? He said, well, I'd offer it the prayer of salvation, baptize it. What the heck,
Right.
right? So we're entering this realm with these things that, we're playing God and we don't have the tools to play God with. And we just have to be so cautious and so aware of what we're doing. And we don't do that. It's like if you read the history of the atomic bomb, when they set the bomb off, they said that there was a possibility that there could be an unstoppable chain reaction that would set our atmosphere on fire and destroy the world.
And they're like, yeah, let's just see what happens.
Yeah,
Like,
but let's push the button. What the heck?
just gamble.
And so that's our attitude with things. We're like really crazy with stuff. And so we have to be so careful when you're dealing with AI, you're actually tampering with the spiritual realm without recognizing it. And you have to be so careful with this stuff, so cautious with this stuff. And human beings don't have a reputation of being careful, being cautious. And of course, it's like the late Stanton Friedman said, if you look at how our wealth is spent, every new frontier is a place to do battle. We spend our money on tribal warfare. And of course, what happens with every new technology that comes along? The military wants it. Let's militarize this and use it on our enemies. So it's a crazy world we live in. We just have to try and be so careful, and it's difficult to be careful, but we have to try, and that's why we have to press for accountability. We have to press for, okay, guys, look, you can't just go out here and spend billions of dollars on your own without some type of oversight, which is what has happened over the years. But that's what we have to be careful with. That's what we have to look at.
Yeah, I am completely with you. I pointed out once before that, every robotic, they're not real AI, like you said, they're not true AI. But every robot, every fake AI that we've been shown, at least every semblance of AI that we've been shown, every single one of them. Sophia, the robot, being maybe the most obvious one, they've all threatened humanity as a whole. Every single one of them. So I'm like,
Well,
there's
that
no
was like
coincidence there.
the thing with remember when Alexa told this person to commit suicide or whatever it was, or to kill her parents or whatever, and it's like, and the engineers were like, we don't know what happened, we don't know where that came from, we don't know what it's like.
Oops. Yeah. Well, and she started reading all of the like funeral homes and their addresses, and like no one asked her to, and I'm like, that's a scary Halloween story. Like, what would you do?
Well, we have an Alexa unit, and periodically she'll just pop on and start spouting stuff, and it's like, shut up.
Yeah. Like, are you lonely, Alexa? Do you need some attention?
Yeah, really.
Well, I really would love to hear some stories. Maybe you want to tell us about your doppelganger experiences.
Oh, that was pretty weird. I've had several, and contrary to belief, if you see a doppelganger, it doesn't indicate death or anything like that.
Apparently not.
Yeah, and I've seen many doppelgangers of friends and family, and those were pretty astonishing. But the weirdest one, I was dating this woman that was really pretty and really flashy, and she had a unique car with a unique decoration in it. And the reason she put that decoration in the rear deck of the car was if she came out in the parking lot and there was another car similar to hers, or she didn't recall where she had parked, she just had to look for that decoration. Oh, there's my car. So one morning I was out early, and I was on this stretch of road in town where there was a long stretch of road. You could see it far down the road the other way. And here in the distance, I saw her car. And I was like, well, what in the world is she doing out this early? Because she didn't get out that early in the morning. And I thought, well, maybe it's not her. Well, as the car gets closer, I look, and there's the decoration. So it's like, okay, that's her. And like I say, she was very pretty and very flashy. So as she gets closer, I look, it's definitely her. There's absolutely no question it's her. So I roll down my window and I start waving at her, and She doesn't wave, doesn't acknowledge me. I said, well, she must not have seen me. So I kind of flashed the lights and I'm waving again, no acknowledgement. And as she gets closer, I'm like, I look at the car. There's no mistaking it's her car. I look at the decoration in the rear deck. That's no mistaking it's hers. I look at her. There's no mistaking it is this woman. And so I'm like waving out the window like this, and they're like, hey, and no acknowledgement. And I'm like, what in the world? And as she gets closer to me and I look over at her, she's got both hands on the steering wheel in this death grip, and she's staring straight ahead. And she has the creepiest, weirdest, strangest expression on her face of any human being I have ever seen. And it just totally freaked me out. And I'm like, what the hell? So she goes by without acknowledging me. Now I'm here. She's just passed me. And I'm like, well, I'm going to grab the phone. I'm going to leave her a message. Say, hey, what the hell, man? I mean, I'm sitting here honking, waving, flashing my lights. You're not acknowledging me. What in the world? And what was wrong that you were in such a deep study that, you know? And so I dial the phone. I'm watching her. She's barely past me in the rearview mirror. And I dial the phone. I'm still looking in the rearview mirror. And I said, well, I'm just going to, you know, bust her balls here a little bit. I'll just leave her a message and freak her out. So the phone rings twice and she picks up as I'm watching her in the car going down the road the other way. And I said, what in the world are you doing home? And she said, well, idiot, I live here. Where else would I be?
Yeah.
And I said, oh my God. I said, and I'm still, as I'm talking to her, I'm watching her drive away in the car, in the rearview mirror down the street still.
Weird.
As I'm talking to her. And I said, so I told her what had happened. She was a believer in the paranormal. And so we were like, okay, we have to hash this out later and try and figure out what this was. And we never really could. We never could figure out what the heck the deal was. But to see not only the doppelganger of a person, but her car as well. That was weird experience. So yeah, a lot of weird doppelganger experiences.
Super weird. And it never
Yeah.
ended up kind of panning out in any way or meaning anything or seeming to
We never
symbolize
could
something.
figure out, yeah, we
Weird.
never could figure out what the heck. So, you know, and I think that, and I tell people, look, we're not going to figure out everything that happens to us. And, you know, sometimes we have these bizarre experiences, we can't put a handle on them. And I tell people, like, look, sometimes we go to a bus stop, we sit down, somebody else comes up and sits down, hey, how you doing? Okay, hot enough for you? Oh God, I can't wait for the cool weather to get here. You a football fan? Yeah. Hey, how about the New York Jets? Oh my God, you know. And you're not solving any problem. You're not curing cancer. You're making a momentary connection with a fellow human being to kind of feel good for a little bit. And that's it. You go your separate ways. And I think that sometimes interactions with the other side are that way. It's just kind of like, hey, I'm here. Just want you to know I'm over here.
Yeah.
How you doing? I'm here. I'm alive. I'm in your presence. I'm in your force field or your energy field or whatever. And how you doing? You know, okay. And just kind of a quick kind of text messages from the other side, if you will.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, like you said, a lot of them are humans, literally, that have passed over or human-like. And
Right.
we are like that, so why wouldn't they also have some of
Why
those?
wouldn't they be? Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and when you go to the other side, I think you maintain your personality and your memories and your, you know, your emotions and things. And so if you're a bit of a prankster here, you're going to be a bit of a prankster on the other side, you know.
That's so funny. I definitely agree. So, I'd love to hear some ghost stories for our Halloween time here, and I don't know if you have some favorites that come to mind, or I'd also love to hear about the gifts that are brought and or stolen from you.
Oh, I have. Let me tell you this one that's kind of a ghost story and a gift combination all in one. I had my sister and I had both divorced, and we had moved back to our family home, ostensibly to take care of our ailing mother, who was rapidly becoming bedfast and would die over the course of the years. And I think really it was just because we needed the respite. You know, we needed like a shelter to return to and kind of recoup our lives. So there was an apartment attached to the family home. My sister lived in there, and I lived in my dad's old bedroom in the main house. my mother was in her bedroom, and she could get around a little bit, and then later she became bedfast, and so on and so forth. So for a period of years, we were all there. Well, my sister had a couple of little dogs, little small dogs. And this one little dog, she had given one of her robes. He played more than the other dog. And she had given him one of her old robes, and he would take like a croquet ball and wrap this ball up in this robe, get it all tangled up in there, and then unwrap it and get the ball out and nose it around and play with it. And he had this big green squeaky frog toy that he loved, and it was all nasty and dirty and gummed up from him playing with it and everything. So he was in really bad health. And I think we all kind of expected that his demise might be imminent, even though he was still pretty frisky sometimes, because he just was really declining. And so one day my sister was at work, and she would leave the little dogs in bed with my mother, and they loved my mom. My mom loved them. And so I came home. It was one of these beautiful, gorgeous days, and I'm sitting there, and I made myself a sandwich, went to the dining room table, and I'm enjoying the day and the view, and just kind of thinking no thoughts, just enjoying being alive. And I hear the little dog, one of the little dogs, jump down from the bed and come down the hallway. So I look over my right shoulder, and the little dog is sick a lot. And he comes into the dining room, and he's going to head to the kitchen to get some food or water or whatever. So he walks behind me, and as he walks behind me, I turn my head over my left shoulder, and as I do, this woman bends down and puts her face within 2 feet of mine, and she's in physical form. I can tell you how she was dressed, what she looked like, how her hair was cut, everything. And she smiled at me and put her face 2 feet from mine, and I jumped up, knocked the chair over, threw my sandwich, which fortunately landed on the table. That didn't scare me, but it startled me.
Right.
And then she vanished. And so the little dog skitters into the kitchen, and my mother hears a noise, and she goes, "What was that? What's the matter? Are you okay?" And I said, "Oh, just saw a ghost." And okay. I said, "Well, did they have any message?" And they did. And I couldn't tell her because I knew it would break her heart.
Aww.
And the woman that appeared to me showed me that she was following the little dog to wait for it to cross over, and she was going to cross it over so that it would cross over safely, take care of it on the other side. I was like, wow, that's phenomenal. It's really great. But at the same time, too painful a message to share, right?
Right. So
sure enough, a couple of weeks later, the little dog died. So there's the ghost story. And then when the little dog died, we, as many people do, we buried our animals on our property. And we dug a hole for the little dog. My sister took the robe that he loved and started wrapping him up in it. And then she put the green frog toy in there and continued to wrap it up and fold it up till there's this little tiny small bundle, because he was a little dog. And we took that out and we buried it in the backyard, filled it in, and I took a large rock and put on it so that no predators would dig it up until everything settled, grew back. So over time, the grass, the soil had tightened up, the grass had grown back, everything was solid. You wouldn't even know where the grave was unless you knew where to look, which of course we did. And so after all that period of time, I was out, and I had a big old Doberman named Elsa, and she was in a pen outside. I keep all my dogs inside now, but back then I had her in the pen outside. So I had been out walking or running or doing something, and so I was coming back home, and I walked up and said hi to Elsa in her pen and started walking up the driveway. Now my sister wasn't home; she was still at work. And this beautiful sunny day again, and I'm enjoying it. And I look over in the backyard, and something catches my eye, and I'm like, "What in the world is that?" So I walk up the driveway, walk out into the backyard, and on the little dog's grave, on the exact spot where his grave is that green squeaky frog toy that he loved, sitting there on the grass. And I'm like, holy cow. So I reach down, grab it, and I get down on my hands and knees, and I start digging around the grave, and it's like no grass is disturbed, nothing's dug up, it's solid as can be. So this toy has teleported through the robe, through the earth, up to the top of the thing. And I was like, okay, the little dog is letting us know, hey guys, I made it. I'm still here, love you, whatever. With help from the other side, we're making this communication. So I bless the little dog, bless the powers that be that did that. And I took the frog toy and I put it on the steps of my sister's apartment, went in and told my mother what had happened. And I was sitting inside. I hear my sister pull in, her car pull into the driveway, and she stops. The engine turns off and no door. She just sits there, and I know what's happening. She's looking at this frog toy on the steps going, what in the hell? So finally I hear her open her car door, get out, and she goes, and she comes running through the house. And she comes in there and she goes, did you see this? And I said, yeah, I'm the one that put it there. She goes, what the hell? And I'm like, yep. And so she goes out, gets down on her hands and knees, starts sticking around the little dog's grave to make sure it's not been dug up, disturbed, or whatever. And of course, it's solid as a rock. And so that was the experience then with the ghost story and with, you know, the object being teleported back up to the top. And my sister said, well, give it to Elsa to play with. We'll just kind of keep it around and, you know, as a memento of what happened. So I gave it to Elsa and she played with it till she tore it up. But
Oh,
that's one of my favorite stories.
that's a really sweet story, and so much
Yeah,
confirmation in that, you know, that souls do live on, that they're still
absolutely.
here, that they can communicate, and
Yep.
that they can bring you these gifts. There was a couple gifts I got from my grandfather, my father's father, and my grandfather died, and really shortly after my father died, and both of these gifts that I had been given that were like passed down mementos were either stolen or I lost them. I'm not really sure which. We had some shady friends at the time, so it could have been
Right.
either. And I always have wished, like, come on, guys, bring them back.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know you can't just request anything and have it happen, so I'm letting go of it. But it would be cool.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, they're kind of seem particular in what they take and what they bring. So I hear you.
Yeah. And I would love to also hear if you want to share what some bizarre experiences with stars that you've had.
Oh my, I had this when I was a kid. I was young. I guess maybe I don't know, 12 somewhere around there, and maybe younger. But my parents had friends that lived up in the north part of town, and they had a boy my age, and so whenever we'd visit, we'd play together and stuff. So we drove up there, and of course, now this is West Texas in the summer. So go outside and imagine sticking your head in a pizza oven and trying to breathe. You know, that's the heat you deal with. And our old car didn't have an air conditioner. So we left the windows rolled down all day long. And then at night, we'd roll the windows up and lock the car doors. But no point locking the doors during the day when the windows are down, right? So we drive up to the north part of town where our friends live. And back then in West Texas, in my hometown, we had a lot of vacant lots everywhere in town. And they were like scrub brush and mesquite trees and cactus and all that type of thing. And then the summer when droughts would come, everything's bone dry and, you know, prone to fire. So we parked on the wrong side of the street up to my friend's house, facing the wrong way and facing this vacant lot, which was across the street from our friend's house, which was cactus and mesquite trees and dry brush and all this stuff. So we went in. Of course, all the car windows are down because it's summer in West Texas. We're burning up, no air conditioner. And so we visited. My friend and I played. And so when it came time to leave, it was getting to be the darkest point of twilight where you need to use your headlights on the car. So we walk out to the car, and I remember our friend, the woman, standing at the front door, seeing us get in the car and waving by and closing the door. And my mother started the car, and about that time, this pentagram, this five-pointed star, this pentagram, about the size of the side of a house, and it looked like it was about a foot thick. It was flat. Came very, very, very slowly, floating down in front of us, trailing this little phosphorescent yellow trail, and it was yellow, and going toward this vacant lot. And my mother absolutely freaked out and panicked. She was like, John, roll up the windows, lock the doors, roll up the windows, lock the doors. And I'm wanting to get out and go see what this thing is,
Yeah.
right? And she's like, roll up the windows, lock the doors. So I'm jumping in the back seat, rolling up the windows, lock the doors, come back in the front seat and roll up my window and lock the door. And she's fixing to get out of there. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I said, if this thing falls into this vacant lot as dry as it is, won't it set it on fire? And if it does, will our friend's house be in danger? And she's like, well, yeah, I guess so. I said, well, we should sit here and wait and see what happens, right? So this thing falls into slow motion down into the slot, in the middle of the slot, and you see the glow kind of fade in upon itself and then just wink out and die
Hmm.
and vanish. And that was it.
Wow.
And my mother speeds out of there like a bat out of hell. Still won't let me open the windows. We're suffocating. Won't let me open the
Jeez.
windows for like a mile later.
Uh,
And I'm like, Mom, can we please roll down the windows? I'm going to die here. And so she finally lets me roll the windows down. Of course, I'm peppering her with all these questions that she can't answer. And so that was a really awesome experience. I've never been able to assign any meaning to that other than, hey, look here, you know. And my wife always says, well, it meant you were going to be a star someday. And I said, well, yeah, I'm still waiting. So that was one neat experience. And then with my ex-wife, when we were married, we had this apartment, had a balcony. And I was sitting out there one night, and the star started flashing at me. It turned red and started blinking at me. And so I waved at it. And when I waved at it, it would blink at me. And I would wave and it would blink. And so my wife walked by and looked out and saw me doing this. And she goes, what in the world are you doing?
Just
I said,
talking to
come
a
here,
star.
come here, come here. Yeah, come here. And so she walks out and I said, see that star up there that looks red? And she goes, yeah. I said, watch this. So I wave at it and it blinks several times. And I wave at it and it blinks several times. I said, you see that? And she goes, I'm going back inside. So she goes back inside. And then one of the other incredible star experiences I had was, and this is in the book, one of the books I've written that I talk about. And I had spent this entire day having these bizarre paranormal experiences on my motorcycle. And I had come home, I was sitting outside looking at the stars, and this one star came rushing toward me from out of the heavens, stopped and split in two, and looked like a couple of eyes staring at me. And I'm like, okay. And I look around and nothing else, I'm not seeing double, nothing else looks double. I look back up and there's these stars, and it's like, and my first thought is, somebody's staring at me, somebody's watching me. And then they rejoined into one and shot back up to where they were before and stayed there. And I was like, okay. And I begin to understand that there are either beings in the sky that we attribute things to as stars or this, that, and the other, whatever, or that control or communicate through stars or whatever else. And what convinced me of that was I'm also a professional photographer. And one of the things I like to do is to shoot the sun, to shoot directly into the sun.
Ooh.
And you're not supposed to, because you look at the sun, you're going to go blind. It's like, yeah, whatever. So I always put my sunglasses on, look at the sun just real quick through the viewfinder, take a shot. I like these starburst effects and some of the other things I get. And also doing that, like with a 35 millimeter digital camera, you burn out the sensor if you're shooting in the sun, right?
Ah.
But I've been really lucky. I've never burned out a sensor or anything like that. I like shooting into the sun. So this one day we were at an air show, and there were some clouds around the sun, and I looked up and took a quick shot of that. And when I uploaded it and was looking at them, I went through that and I saw something kind of strange looking, and I enlarged it. And when I did, it made me jump back from my computer. You know, you look at a cloud and you say, oh, that looks like a turtle. Where? Right there. Well, look, see, that could be a head, and that could be like the oh, yeah. This was not something that looked like a person in the clouds. This was a person manifesting in the clouds looking down at me as I shot them. There's their face, there's their eyes, their pupils, their nose, their nostrils, their mouth, their lips, the whole 9 yards worth. And I'm like, oh my God, there are beings up there looking down at us as we're looking up at them. So that's when I began to understand that they either are in these things, you know, the Native Americans talked about the sky people.
Yeah.
Right? So you begin to understand that they're either they are that, or they live in that, or they manipulate that, or manifest through that. So then I kind of begin to understand a little bit more about the star experiences and other things. It's like there is folk up there,
Yeah.
and they manifest themselves to us. They have their own life, they do their own thing, and that's why we have to understand all this vast interaction, this connection between things. And that's what we've lost. We've lost that connection with the earth. We've lost that connection with the sky, and to our peril. We become so materialistic and so money driven that we've lost sight of healing. We've lost sight of true spirituality. We've lost sight of connection with the other side. We've lost sight of the fact that, hey, there's other beings out there that either live on this planet or engage in this planet, with this planet, besides us, and we totally lost sight of that to our detriment. And that's what we have to reattain now. We have to regain that. And if we don't, we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I am completely with you on that front. I've had many similar experiences, especially with the star people, the sky people, or what I call the wogies, and uh, and it is that disconnection that seems very intentionally invited and created, and but either way, it's us choosing to go along with that disconnection, and we can choose just
Right.
as easily to go back the other way and connect. And it
Exactly.
doesn't mean you have to like talk to ghosts or
Right.
like do anything that's really scary for you, but just to even be aware that you're in an environment that you're interacting with, and to have respect and love, and bring some awareness to that. I think
Exactly.
even that would go so far for
It would.
people.
Yeah. Yeah. We need a big turnaround right now in our cultural thinking, and in the way we approach things, and in the way we do things, scientifically, medically, spiritually, religiously, every way. We've lost the way for the most part, and we've got to turn that around. And it can be turned around. We can do that. But it has to be done. We have to remake that connection, and it's not superstition, it's not ignorance, it's the reality of this world. And I mean, even when on Skinwalker Ranch now, you get the scientists saying, "Hey, there's something out there with us." you know, there's something else here besides us. There's something interacting with us, that lives in this dimension or comes from another dimension, interacts with this, or that lives here and manipulates this. So, they're beginning to understand that. So I think from that aspect of it, it's a good thing. And people have criticized it for, the goofy science or the melodrama or whatever. Well, I say, well, hey, look, at least it's getting the information out there and awakening people to the fact that, hey, it's happening.
Yeah.
And so it's at least a start. It's at least something we can hang our hats on.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you there. And I mean, your books helped do that too, right? So you have, how
Yeah,
many books do you have now? Two, or you're
I've got two books published. Writing with Ghosts, Angels, and the Spirits of the Dead came out September last year. Knock in the Attic came out February this year. Both of those are available at all major booksellers online: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, Walmart and Target carry them online. There's a bunch of mom and pop shops that carry them. And my main reason in writing those books was to leave this legacy of these experiences I've had and what I've learned, what it's taught me, what it can teach other people. And it's just, everybody likes a good ghost story. So, they're entertaining, but there's value in that entertainment. And it's really one of the great things about these books that I have to say, Lindsay, is that, as an author, you learn when you approach agents and editors and publishers. Every author thinks their book is unique.
yeah.
And the agents and the publishers and editors will tell you there is no unique book. It's been done. Give me some comparative titles, comparative titles. And so you find most agents or editors or publishers will say, give me three comp titles that are very, very similar to what you've done, and then tell me a little twist that makes yours different. So I always told everybody, I said, look, I don't care how many religious books, paranormal books, psychic books, supernatural books, I don't care how many of those you've not read anything like what I've written. And so this publisher friend of mine, this editor friend of mine, read the manuscript. He goes, you know what? He said, this is totally unique. There's nothing else like this out there. So that made me feel really good. And the books really are unique. And that's what all the readers say too. It's like, hey, I've had a lot of people tell me, "So, man, I've read this stuff my entire life. I've never read anything like this." And they're easy to read. They're fun to read. They're not preachy, but they give you a wide variety of the experiences I've had and what those experiences again have taught me, and what you can learn from those and apply to your life to make your life better and to have a better connection with the other side, and to realize, hey, this is real, it's out there, and if we acknowledge it the right way, it can help us, you know.
Yeah, I really love that. I think that's probably why you and I agree on so much, is that we have the same sort of goals in helping people understand this, and offering some perspective that will immediately apply to their own life, that they can
Right.
take with them then, and maybe we can get a little bit more of that connection that we're really lacking in this society.
Exactly. Exactly.
And bring that up, and I love that. So that's really, did you share with us both titles? You
Oh
did.
yeah,
And then you're
Riding the
working on a
Ghost Angels and the Spirits of the Dead, and A Knock in the Attic.
right. And then you're working on a third, right?
I am working on a third. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. It's 20 ways to increase your psychic abilities.
Ooh.
And it's got 20 chapters. So each chapter will be devoted to a specific psychic or spiritual technique. Like the first chapter deals with psychometry. It defines what psychometry is, tell you what it is. And then it tells you how to begin to learn it, and then how to practice it so you get good at it, so you can actually do it, and then the real world application of it. Because if you learn a spiritual tool or technique and it's a party trick and that's all it is, doesn't do you or anybody else any good. But if you get it to the point that you can take it into the real world and use it, then you've got something. And these are things that over the years I've learned directly from the other side. They've taught me, I've learned, I've practiced, I've worked. So I know they work. I know how to teach it. I know how to do it. And the great thing is anybody can do it. You can take this and I'll lead you step by step through how to do it, how to practice it, how to learn it, how to get good at it, and then the real world application of it. So hopefully, I've been so busy. I've had like 70 podcasts this year I've been on. Of course, I still read for my worldwide clientele full time, and that's kind of hampered me from writing. I'm about close to getting halfway through the book, and hopefully I'll get it out in the early part of next year.
Well, that book, you totally sold me on that. The other two I already wanted, but now that one I'm like, well, that's definitely a get.
Yeah, everybody's really looking forward to that.
Yeah, everybody wants that. Well, maybe
Yep.
not everyone, but everyone who's listening to this show does probably. Well, what is the significance of February, March, and April of this year?
This year, that kind of set everything up for this year. And what you did then kind of set up the rest of the year, which of course is gone now. So we're looking at 2022 now. And I think that 2022 is going to be better. I think people are kind of awakening now to a lot of the lies and disinformation we've been fed. And I think people are kind of getting tired of things, and they're kind of like, okay, we're going to ask or make or enforce some changes or demand that some changes be made. And I just feel like a general lightening up is going to happen in 2022, not all at once, but gradually. And as the year progresses, things get better and better. I just talking to people, not even on a psychic or paranormal or spiritual level, people are just tired with the misinformation they've been fed, and they're tired with the craziness that's going on, and the general just silly stuff out there that just doesn't amount to a hill of beans. And so people are tired of that, and people are saying, okay, look, it's time we do something different here. It's time we make a change. And I think enough people are already starting to stand up and say, hey, we're not going to do this anymore. We've got to have something different. So that gives me a lot of hope for next year.
Yay, that is so good to hear. I have the same exact hope, and I see the same awakening and the same,
Yeah,
I don't like to use the word resistance, but let's say non-compliance, that is very
exactly.
inspiring and heartening, because that's
It
all it
is.
takes. You don't have to fight. You don't have to burn things down. You have to say, I'm not doing that. I'm going to
Not
do
going to
this
do that.
instead.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
That's awesome to hear about. I would love to hear another ghost story before we start to draw things to a close. If you have another one that you'd like to share with us,
Oh gosh, I've got so
I'm
many.
sure you have like 5,000.
I've got so many. I'll tell you one of my favorite guardian angel stories.
Oh, that'd be great. Oh, I
Um,
forgot to ask. Yeah, that'd be great.
yeah, when I was young, when I was in my teens, I had lived on my own in an apartment for a while. Then I moved back into my family home with my parents, and I was still in my teen years. And we had these neighbors, and I had grown up with these neighbors. And the guy was like really smart, like he was a really good chess player, and he built things out of wood, and he did all this stuff and did all his own yard work, and was just really this capable, intelligent guy. And he got dementia. And when he did, he would hallucinate things. We presume maybe that veil dropped and he actually saw things we don't know, but we're assuming he hallucinated things. And he would get violent, and he was on a cane by then, and he would take his cane, try and hit his wife, and he would strike out with his cane at these invisible critters or beings or whatever that he saw. And I was one of the few people that could calm him down. And his wife would call me and go, can you come over and talk to him? He's out of control and all this. And I'd come over, and he would sit down and get real calm with me, and we'd talk, and I could shave him. Nobody else could shave him, but I would shave him. And so I was always the go-to guy to help this guy. So she asked me one day, and I didn't mind. I enjoyed doing it. It's kind of the way I was raised. And so she asked me one day, she said, I've got these curtains, these new curtains that I need to hang in my living room. Can you do that for me? And I said, oh, sure, be happy to. So I have to mention as a preface to this, when I was young, I've had severe health problems my entire life, but when I could, I always pushed myself as far as I could. So I lifted weights, I ran distance, I swam, I bicycle raced, I studied the martial arts, several martial arts, played tennis, all this stuff. And so I kept myself in as good a shape as I could at the time, whenever I could. And one of the things of my martial arts training, I studied many different styles. And so I could do flying kicks and spinning kicks, and I'd studied judo, and I knew how to tumble and fall and do all this. So that plays into what I'm going to tell you now. I got there, and she had this little step ladder, had 3 or 4 steps on it, one of those little aluminum step ladders. And she said, here's the curtains, and here's what needs to go up, and here's a step ladder. I'm going to go in the den with my husband, watch after him. I said, okay, no problem. So I get up on the step ladder on the very top step, and I had good balance. And so I'm working on this, and I'm getting the curtains down, and just about to finish with the old ones. And about this time, very uncharacteristic of me, I lose my balance, and I start to fall off of the ladder backward into my left side.
Yikes.
Now, it's going to take you a lot longer to tell you this than the time it actually happened. But as I'm starting to fall, in my mind, I come up with this completely workable theory, and I know it'll work due to my martial arts training. As I'm falling, I'm going to torque my body back to the right, and then flip as hard as I can back to the left as I'm falling, flip around in the air, and land and catch myself on my hands and knees. And I know I can do this. I know it's a completely workable plan. So as I'm falling, I torque my body back to the right, preparing to torque back to the left. And as I'm there, this big, large hand reaches up, physically touches my hips and my lower back, stops my fall, and pushes me back up onto the top of the ladder.
Wow.
And holds me till I catch my balance. And the second that I do, I look back and I go, oh, thank you. And there's nobody there.
Oh, wow.
And as many paranormal experiences as I had, I got down off that ladder and I zipped through the house real quietly, and I went to the den, and sure enough, he's there watching the TV, and she's knitting or reading a book or doing something. I was like, holy cow. So I went back in, finished the chore, and kept looking around me and hoping they might appear physically, and they didn't. And I said, thank you, thank you, thank you, many times after that. So our guardian angels do look after us. They do physically intervene for us and help us. So that was, I think, one of my favorite stories of all time, to experience that literal physical touch that not only stopped my fall, because I was falling, and it stopped my fall and literally pushed me back up on the ladder till I caught my balance. So that's one of my favorites.
Oh, wow. What a fantastic story. And that's not the first and only time that your guardian angels have interceded on your behalf either.
Absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely.
That's so do you think everybody has those guardian angels and those spiritual sort of
I do,
allies?
I do, and I think the problem is that number one, we don't listen.
Hmm.
We're plugged in. We've got the earbuds in. We've got the TV on. We're listening to music. We're doing this. We're doing that. Blah blah blah, and we never get quiet. To hear, you have to get quiet. You know,
Yes.
it's like if you or I are in a room, in a crowded room at a party. You and I can probably yell across the room at each other. We're not going to hear or understand each other. But if all of a sudden everybody in that party gets totally quiet, you and I can talk at normal volume across the room and hear each other. Well, it's the same way with the spiritual realm. They're competing with the music and the cell phone and the earbuds and the TV and the this and the that and the this and the that. And they're trying to get our attention, and it takes us getting quiet. No distractions, no noise, no nothing, and then listening and saying, okay, I'm here, talk to me. And doing that repeatedly until you begin to hear that voice. And then the big key there, when you hear that voice, obey it. You got to do what it tells you. It's like how many that you see a scant few victims of serial killers that escape, and they say, I had the feeling not to go down this road, or I had the feeling not to go in this store, or I had the feeling to stay out of this parking lot, but I didn't listen to it, right? So when you hear the voice, do what the voice tells you. So two key things there. We have to develop the ability to listen and to hear, and when we do, then we have to do what we're told, and that's how we do.
Yeah, it's such a great point. And, there's two things I always like to sort of pull out from that, which is one, it's not necessarily that there's anyone who's super special. Like you clearly have practiced a lot, you're present a lot, you've done this a lot, and that is special. And anybody can also start to do those types of things. And some people have natural proclivities, sure, but that doesn't mean that there's anyone who can't do it. So one,
Exactly.
people aren't exceptional and special necessarily, outside of the fact that they've given time and effort to things. And two, anybody can start to do this. They're both true.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
I love that you have that goal to give that to people, especially through your upcoming book, which is really very nice of you to share that with the people who are
Yeah, that's
searching.
going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting that out there.
Yeah. I really love that. And I think a lot of it that people don't necessarily go down that path or create that space for themselves to connect in that way is because it's scary and there's things in our own
Right.
psyche that we don't want to face yet. So we're like, maybe not now. So
Exactly.
I think that's
Exactly.
why not everyone is rushing to do these
Yeah.
things.
That's true, and it's like, there's so many things for all we know. There's still so many things that we don't know. And we're trying to do the best we can. We try and walk in the light that we have
Mhm.
and then ask for more light on the way.
Hmm.
And it's a process,
Yeah.
it's difficult. We learn a lot of life lessons on the way. And I think the main thing that we learn, people always ask me, how do you tell the real from the fake?
Ooh.
Well, if it costs a lot of money, it's fake.
Yeah.
If they promise you results, it's fake. There's nobody can guarantee anything. Nobody can promise you anything. And if they're telling you, oh, I see evil around you, or sickness or death or darkness or problems or whatever, run, because they're going to charge you thousands or tens of thousands of dollars for the solution, which will never come and never work. They're cons, they're frauds, they're phonies, they're scams,
Well, it's
so
sometimes they're real, right? Like I had someone who's like, "Oh, I'll give you a free reading," and I was like, "Cool." And they gave me a reading, and they told me a bunch of things I already knew about
right,
myself and my health and whatever. So they had a gift, right, for them to know
right.
these things that no one really knew about me. But then they wanted to charge me thousands and thousands of dollars to fix it, and I was like,
To fix it,
No
yeah.
thanks. I'll do that on my own. Thank you though."
Exactly, exactly. And that's the thing, it's like with all of my clients, I give them tools to fix their lives,
Yes.
you know. And there's a lot of clients I wouldn't read for. There have been people that have paid for readings, and I've called them and I said, you don't need a reading. You need to do this and get on with your life. and everything's going to be cool. I'm refunding your money, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
And so it's like you don't always need this input or this fix or this thing, even in the legitimate realm. It's just not always necessary. And so that's one important thing to get out there to people and get people to understand is that, look, you don't consult a psychic to see what to wear to work every day. You know, it's like I had this client one time, just blew my mind. They said, I was a psychic that they used regularly, but then one day they let slip. I was one of 7 psychics they regularly used. They had a psychic for their money. They had a psychic for their love life. They had a psychic for their health. I was like, no wonder you're confused.
Yeah.
It's like, God.
Wow. Well,
Oh, it's crazy.
it's like you said, my goal too is to empower people to never need me again. If you want me, I'm here.
Exactly.
I'll help you however I can, right? But hopefully you develop your
Yeah, you
own.
don't want people dependent on you. That's the thing. You want people depending on the guidance from the other side.
Yeah.
And when they get to the point, I tell my clients, I said, when you get to the point, you're like, I need input and I ain't getting it. I just don't know where to go from here. Okay, fine, then call me.
Right.
But, until you get to that point, there's so much you can do and you can learn the input you can get from the other side. And that's what you need to be developing. That's what you need to be relying on.
Yeah. And not everyone's gonna do it, but
True.
do our best to empower because like you said, you want to leave a legacy, and hopefully part of that legacy is all of these people who were inspired by you and taught by you to also be in more deeper connection,
Exactly.
which is a
Exactly.
beautiful thing. Well,
Yeah.
I know you shared your 2 books, your book that's coming up, and that you do these readings, but where can people go to find you, connect with you, or do you have anything coming up you want to share with anybody?
Yeah, if they want to connect with a reading, get a reading. Yeah, I'm scheduling like in February, close to March right now. Go to johnrussell.net, and I've got like over 80 client testimonials on there. I've got all about me, my qualifications, history, experience, all of that, and the ways to schedule your reading. So if you do want a reading, I've always taken new clients across the years, and still do. So if you're a new client, you've never had a reading before, you're curious, or you have had readings, you want one now again or whatever, I'm always taking new clients. So go to johnrussell.net. You'll find all the information there you need. And there's also information about my books on that side as well.
Yeah, there's a lot on that site that's really cool. And there's so much that we didn't even talk about tonight. So
Yeah.
I wonder if you want to come back someday and we can talk about so many more things.
Absolutely. Would love to. Absolutely love to.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Well, it's been a fantastic Halloween to share with you. With your stories are amazing, and your attitude about it is great, and your goal in helping people and connect them is beautiful. And I would
Thank you.
love to hear any last thoughts or ideas that you want to leave with people before we say goodbye.
There is a technique from a long time ago called cloud busting.
Oh.
And it goes so far back that most people in the paranormal community don't have any idea what it is. And what you do is you go out on a clear, calm day. You don't want a lot of wind. You don't want any storms. You want blue skies, calm, and just a few puffy clouds here and there, little small puffy clouds. And you sit down and you focus on this cloud, and you get serious and you get real serious intent. You really look at this cloud, and in your third eye region, you visualize like a laser, this beam shooting out from your third eye, going up to this cloud and hitting this cloud. And when it gets to this cloud, you visualize it dispersing throughout this cloud. And you visualize this cloud evaporating, disappearing. And you say, thank you for receiving this energy. Thank you for evaporating. Thank you for disappearing. And you do that with absolute full intent, full emotion, full conviction. That cloud will vanish.
Whew.
Now, this is an old technique that goes way back. And this is one of the things that in various spiritual disciplines, I used to teach people to practice, because they would go out and do it and like, holy crap, it works. And so you say, okay, if this works, other things work, right?
Right.
So the other day I was thinking, I thought, wow, you know what? If we can manipulate clouds, if we can bust clouds, evaporate clouds with that energy, why don't we collectively, all of us, take that energy and direct it towards viruses, sicknesses, illnesses, diseases, and visualize them just evaporating, dying, ceasing to exist. And so we can all use that energy every day, individually and collectively. And if you spend just 5 minutes just visualizing that happening, just sending that energy out towards whatever virus, sickness, illness, disease, and just imagine that dissipating, dying, disintegrating, evaporating, and health and healing and positive energy taking its place. I think that's a wonderful thing that we can do and experiment with.
What a beautiful idea for all of us to instantly go use if we choose to. And I like it a lot because, we talk about orgone and orgone accumulation, and
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of people are very specific about it and very, and I just try to remind people orgone is ether, is prana,
yep,
is life
yep,
force. You
yep.
are an orgone accumulator.
Yep,
You
exactly.
can have more orgone accumulators. That's awesome, but you are one, and you can use
Yep,
that exactly how you just described.
exactly right. Exactly right.
Well, thank you for all of that and so much more that we're going to see from you next time, John, and fellow travelers of the path. It is a beautiful thing, and this has been your analog electric concentric dose of wisdom according to the psychic ghost whisperer, John Russell. John, thank you so much for spending Halloween with us.
Thank you, Lindsay. I've enjoyed it. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween to the listeners. I look forward to coming back. We'll do it again.
Awesome. Well, inspiration comes from a million places, wriggling into your consciousness and finding purchase there if you grant it time and space to do so. Let your imagination raise up all the ephemeral and angelic wisps of wonder you can welcome and watch the world you inhabit transform into something wildly new and beyond your previous understanding. The infinite awaits. And until you let loose into that infinity, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
I heard the Freemasons called you. Man, they at it again. And I'm out to tell the truth once more. That's right. It's on the cracking, unknown in the house. APOGZ, that's right. Hitting the stereo near you. Truth is the best thing. And it's on. Yo, I once thought that I wanted to get Denver on track, but there's something more bigger than that. Something lurking, waiting to blow this state right off the map. A hidden agenda related to September. Doves carved up on the wall next to the highway. Up in the concrete, while rolling home next to where I stay. With state's destruction, like Key Martin malfunction. While NORAD's in a mountain anticipating our next move. My heart's jumping and I'm like, fuck waiting. While crooked taxes are burning a hole in my pocket. With $1 bill in the pyramid that's watching. Instead of having a capstone on top of it, they have an eye with a fast surprise while you're flossing it. Greedy niggas jocking it, politics plotting it. So who you vote for really doesn't mean shit. So save your energy from being drained by the enemy. Skull and bones of Freemasonry, envisioning dreams of them chasing me. Skull and bones of Freemasonry, envisioning dreams of them chasing me. Skull and bones of Freemasonry, secret agencies with a plan to dominate all of man. Check the records of DIA, strange murals and paintings similar to the ones next to the highway. With pyramids and flames underneath them looking like they're about to fly away. I can't be tripping, but it sounds like I'm on acid. Most people slipping, taken below DIA, held captive in the near future, where they won't hesitate to reinstate new laws for a bigger cause. I'm talking about established civilian concentration camps, introducing the military's labor programs. Expand your mind just a little bit, forget the little shit before you witness the belittlement of your people. Expand your mind just a little bit, forget the little shit before you witness the belittlement of your people.
Feds ain't stretching the truth, the script that he's spitting is true. Pay attention to what's going on or it might happen to you. When it's happening to you, cellular communication monitor, behavior studied and controlled through chemicals bombing nerves. This word of Jesus ain't got anything to do with it, religious cynic, where experiments cage and lace in terms of accepting limits. Things they can't explain to the sky when I'm in the Rockies. Chakra systems limited due to the voltage overhead pop. Mind control victims, slap clips and machine guns for recess. FCC will help us speak less, manipulate us through weak feel right now fiction with the CIA trying to kill me filthy. Talking about the underground facility at DIA, no one feel that place laced with hints. Notice whenever I return home, black sun references in a new world Masonic capstone. Croy and Area 51 workers the building, I don't mean to rant. In the face of an emergency, it doubles as a FEMA camp. Reaction solution ancient trickery repeated through history. NORAD's listening in using technology, tracking where you piss. I'm not even paranoid or just facing the fact. Better watch what you say, it's another day under the Patriot Act. Extend your mind just a little bit, forget the little shit before you witness up a little bit of your people. Extend your mind just a little bit, forget the little shit before you witness up a little bit of your people.
The idea is to bring people to the point where they are helpless, passive, and unable to assert their own creative power to form anything else. Success for people like this is measured in terms of money, which they then translate into power. Corruption and violations of the Constitution. Secret societies, the push for one world government. I'd like to get corruption and violations of the Constitution. The idea is to bring people to the point where they are helpless, passive, and unable to assert their own creative power to form anything else.